Yeah, welcome everyone. Marijuana Time Show for January 18th, 2018. I'm your host, Joe Klare. You find myself and many other great writers over at marijuanatimes.org. We take we track everything that's going on in the cannabis community and industry, all the news and opinions you need at marijuanatimes.org. You find these videos there as well. Share them on your social media outlets. You can also search Apple Podcasts, search the Marijuana Times on there to find the audio version of the show. Of course, find the videos on YouTube and Facebook. Just search the Marijuana Times. Some great stories today. A new poll shows how people feel about federal interference or possible federal interference with marijuana in states where it is legal. Also, we'll talk about an op-ed from the Colorado Attorney General from the Washington Post. And the first cannabis licenses have been awarded in Los Angeles. Talk about all that coming up. But first, of course, I'll tell you that the Marijuana Times Show is brought to you by Natureside Cannabis.com. Organic, all-natural pesticides. If you're a cultivator in a legal state, whether it be California, Colorado, Oregon, or Washington, or beyond, you want to be regulatory compliant, and you also want to make sure you're not putting harmful chemicals in what you are growing. Grow safe and poison-free with Natureside Cannabis.com. They can help you with their line of all-natural organic pesticides. They can also help you become regulatory compliant in your state. Make sure you check them out. Natureside Cannabis.com, the sponsor, proudly, of the Marijuana Times Show. This first story comes from marijuanatimes.org. It's a story I wrote over there entitled, Majority of Americans Want Feds to Leave State Legal Marijuana Businesses Alone. The new Huffington Post YouGov poll shows a majority of respondents want the federal government to leave marijuana businesses alone. In states where such activities have been made legal, 56% say they are opposed to the feds getting involved in cannabis sales in states where they are legal, with 44% of respondents being strongly opposed to those efforts. On the flip side, only 30% say they support the feds cracking down, and only 18% are strongly in favor of a federal crackdown. If you go deeper into the numbers in the poll, you find 47% of respondents think laws governing the use of marijuana should be decided at the state level, and 32% think that those laws should be decided at the federal level. Excuse me. 55% of people who responded say marijuana should be legalized, and they also, 55% think it should be legalized in their state. So 55% for nationwide and in their state. One of the interesting things about this poll is, you know, the regular breakdowns when it comes to party, Republicans versus Democrats versus independents, and age groups is pretty much intact, except when it comes to older people, people over the age of 65. Those people, of course, are more likely to feel that marijuana should not be legalized. It shouldn't be legalized in their state, and it shouldn't be legalized nationwide. But they are also very much in favor of leaving the states to do what they need to do. So even though older folks over 65, according to this poll, are against marijuana legalization, they're also against federal interference when it comes to state laws. I think the states should be able to make up their own minds and govern their own policies when it comes to marijuana legalization. So it's a pretty interesting poll. It's a pretty interesting time, obviously. Go check that story out over at marijuanatimes.org. It shows, of course, as I said, people are against a crackdown. And hopefully the people, especially U.S. attorneys, are getting that message that people don't want to see a crackdown. They don't want resources wasted in that way. And hopefully that translates into non-action or a continuation, at least, of the status quo when it comes to U.S. attorneys. This next story is an op-ed from the Washington Post entitled, It's Too Late to Dismantle the Marijuana Industry. What's interesting about this op-ed is it was written by Cynthia H. Kaufman, a Republican, who's also the Attorney General of Colorado. She's also a candidate for governor of Colorado. Here's a part of what she wrote. Colorado voters decided in November 2012 that our state constitution should protect legalized retail marijuana. A little more than 5 years later, I suspect that if we put that issue to a vote again, it would pass by an even higher numbers. For better or worse, legalized marijuana has become more accepted around the country, with 29 states in the district now having some form of cannabis legalization. That is why it was surprising to wake up last week to the news that the Justice Department, without advance notice, rescinded a nationwide guidance regarding marijuana enforcement. By rolling back this guidance, including the Cole Memorandum, the Justice Department has left the decision-making up to the 93 U.S. attorneys, creating substantial uncertainty in how the law will be applied from state to state. Frankly, it is too late for the federal government to step in and dismantle this burgeoning industry. Now, Attorney General Kaufman goes on to say that she was against legalization, but of course she feels obliged to follow state law and protect state legal businesses. She says, I have certainly seen the downside of its establishment, meaning legalization, but I recognize the responsibility of elected officials to put aside personal feelings and implement the will of the citizens to the best of their abilities. In Colorado, we remain committed to improving the laws and regulations governing marijuana businesses. Now, like many other lawmakers, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, this is the Attorney General and possible future governor of Colorado saying the cat is out of the bag, the bull has left the barn, however you want to put it. It's too late, and it is pointless to try to go after legal marijuana and the legal marijuana industry. Again, hopefully this is advice heeded by U.S. attorneys, and U.S. Attorney in Colorado has already said that there's going to be no change. But hopefully it's advice heeded by attorneys all across the country. If there's legalized medical marijuana or recreational marijuana or even CBD-only laws in their state, to leave them alone. If it's state legal, there is no point in the federal government going after. Now, if it's a huge marijuana trafficker that's violating state law or whatever, whatever. If you want to use resources on that, whatever. But leave state legal businesses, consumers, the state legal industry alone. And that's much of what this Colorado Attorney General, is saying in her op-ed to the Washington Post. As always, you can find the links to the stories I talk about in the description of this video and in the stories that accompany these videos over at marijuanatimes.org/story comes from LA Weekly. First cannabis licenses issued by the city of Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles granted its first licenses for cannabis sales on January 12th, with Mother Nature's Remedy Caregivers in Woodland Hills being the first recipient of a medicinal license. WHTC in Studio City was granted the first recreational license. David Slocum is the owner of Mother Nature's. He says he was the first to apply for a Proposition D immunity back in 2007. It eventually came into effect in 2013, and then on Friday was the first to apply for medicinal. All recipients of city licenses now have to wait for state approval. Basically, if you didn't follow what's going on in the last decade in Los Angeles, there was a lot of upheaval. Excuse me. The dispensaries, at one point, several hundred dispensaries were operating in Los Angeles without regulation, really. They didn't have licenses. They were operating under Proposition 215 that was passed in 1996 in California. They operated that way for a long time, and the city has made many attempts to scale back, to crack down, to issue licenses, to issue some kind of regulatory framework, to enact some sort of regulatory framework around medicinal dispensaries in Los Angeles. They are finally getting around to that at the same time that they're doing the same thing for recreational. And as they point out in the story, the local people, the local entities and authorities have to get their act together before these businesses can apply for state licenses, which they also have to do. Especially when it comes to recreational legalization, they have to be approved locally and have their local license, and then they can go to the state and get their state license and be approved under the new recreational adult use legalization law to be able to operate in Los Angeles. It's been a long road, and a lot of dispensaries were shut down. There's a lot less medical marijuana dispensaries in Los Angeles than there were several years ago. Right now, of course, those will be augmented with those getting recreational licenses, and hopefully that increases the supply of legal marijuana in Los Angeles. Obviously, Los Angeles is a huge city. It's a huge area. And for things to be so screwed up in Los Angeles, as they have been for so many years, it's been uncertain whether or not these dispensaries were operating legally. Now they have some sort of regulatory structure in place for the medicinal side and for the recreational side. Now they are finally giving out licenses and awarding licenses to these businesses. So hopefully a stable, regulated, legal market on both the medicinal side and the recreational side can be established in Los Angeles to service tons of customers, hundreds of thousands at least, just in the Los Angeles area alone. That doesn't count all of California. Just in that area, we're talking hundreds of thousands of potential customers. We're talking hundreds of thousands of medical marijuana patients who, well, they don't know if their dispensary is going to be open. They don't know if their dispensary is going to have what they need. They may go back to their dispensary they went to last week. They may go there tomorrow and it'll be closed down. Hopefully most of that is over and Los Angeles finally has their act together. It took a long time. If you go back and follow what's going on over the last 10 or 11 years and 12 years, back to 2007, it's a lot. And it's a long time to get to a point where, hopefully things are more stable with the coming of recreational marijuana and legalization in California. Of course, we'll continue to follow those stories and more here on the Marijuana Times Show. Thank you to NaturesideCannabis.com for sponsoring the show. NaturesideCannabis.com, organic, all-natural pesticides. They are awesome. Continue to follow and check out these videos. Like, share, comment, spread the word. Help us spread the truth about cannabis with these videos and with the Marijuana Times Show. And, of course, make sure you check us all out at marijuanatimes.org for the latest in the cannabis community, industry, and beyond. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. The weekends tomorrow will be here, as always, bringing the news to you. Thanks, everybody. I'm Joe Klare. It's January 18th, 2018. This has been the Marijuana Times Show. We will see you next time.